Hey, what is up, everybody? Welcome to day 14 of the Halloween movie review series, and today I am going to be reviewing Saw 2. This was obviously in a response because the first Saw was so successful. They decided to remake a second one, and that's well, not remake, but make a second one, and that's exactly what happened. And yeah, overall, I remember watching this movie back 3 years ago, actually 4 years ago now, and I remember loving it then, but watching it again, I still love it now. It's just barely better, I'd say, than the first one. There's as in terms of a storyline. Now, I will give obviously I'm not going to be as harsh on it because the first one, this one had was just pretty much contained into one room, and it was a lot of backstory. And this one, they had more stuff to do. It had more of a budget and stuff, so obviously you can't really crap on the first one. The first one's still really good, but obviously this one I just think is better because they were able to do more stuff, and it had more of like a storylines and stuff. So yeah, I'm just gonna get right into it. So in this case, this movie was directed by Darren Lee Bousman, and it was produced by Greg Hoffman, Mark Berg, and Orrin Coles. And this movie was written by Darren Lee Bousman and Lee Wainell, and it was based on the work of James Wayne and Lee Wainell. And this movie came out on October 28th, 2005, and ironically enough, so originally this movie was going to be a different movie in 2005. It was actually going to be I'm seeing if I can find it, because originally James Wayne and Lee Wainell were kind of unavailable for this movie because they were writing a different movie. They were writing Dead Silence. So Darren Lee Bousman completed a script for a different movie. He completed a script for a movie called The Desperate, and originally this was supposed to be that movie. He had written everything for that movie, and originally it didn't go through, and then they decided to pretty much just make it this movie. They Lionsgate picked it up, and it came out around Halloween time. So that's pretty much what led to it happening. And I was just kind of reading some stuff about this movie, and pretty much what happened was not a lot of people really knew a lot of stuff that happened in this movie. They were only given about 88 pages of the script, and if they changed it, they usually were told to rip it up. So not a lot of people within the crew really knew about this movie. And another thing is a lot of people, most of this was scripted out, but some of the stuff people just went off the fly with it. They just pretty much some of the stuff was said off a script, which I actually kind of liked. They also kind of listened to the fans and gave them a little bit more of what they wanted, and that's kind of like what I liked about that this movie did, is they went off script at times, and they also listened to the fans in this movie, and I couldn't be more appreciative about that, because it's nice when a movie or something I like listens to the fans, because they're the ones watching it and paying for the money. You should listen to the fans. But now that I've kind of gone through that, let me start off by talking about this movie. So the movie starts off, we meet this, it starts off with this guy, Michael Mokes, and he wakes up, and he just wakes up, obviously, in just a random building, and when he wakes up, he sees that he has a trap just strapped to his right on him, and he finds out that he's pretty much been kidnapped, and his eye is all bloody, and Jigsaw pops up on a television, and he pretty much talks about how he's here because he's always been been known to watch people. He just never known to actually do things for himself, and yeah, he pretty much says his typical catchphrase that he wants to play a game with him, and what he pretty much has to do is he has a certain amount of time to unlock this Venus flytrap and get it off of him, and if he doesn't, the trap's gonna close and it will kill him, and and the key is pretty much while he was unconscious, Jigsaw surgically put the key in his eye, which I thought was actually pretty gruesome. So pretty much this kid Mark pretty much has to, and I thought it made sense because the whole thing of his life is he's been watching other people. I thought this made sense to put the key in his eye. So pretty much he has to sacrifice his eye to and he has to cut, because he finds a box that with like a box cutter, and he has and that's just gonna cut right into his eye to get the key, and he just can't bring himself to do it. So the trap closes on him and he dies. And I thought that was a pretty good scene. And I thought the storyline really worked for that, where the kid went to cut his eye open, but he just couldn't bring himself to do so. And I thought it was a good. I thought it was a good mini game. And then we get to the actual story of the movie. We meet Eric Matthews, who's also a detective, and pretty much he's very miserable. Him and his son don't have a good relationship. Him and his wife just got a divorce. His son got in trouble, gets in trouble a lot, and him and his son get into an argument because he's upset that apparently he stole something from somebody, which caught his son Daniel Matthews in trouble. And Daniel wants to go back to his mom's early, and then Eric says, well, why don't you go back then? And then he goes back to his house and tries to call Daniel several times, and he never picks up. We obviously find out more so why later on in the movie. And then when he gets a phone call from Detective Allison Carey, and she pretty much Eric has worked with Michael in the past, and she wanted to see if he knew him, but Eric pretty much wants nothing to do with this. He wants nothing to do with this case, and he doesn't really want to be dragged into it. And Allison tells him that, well, you've already been dragged into it, because on the top it says, look closer, Eric Matthews. So pretty much Jigsaw is trying to call out Eric, but Eric doesn't want anything to do with his case. He already has to deal with enough with divorce and stuff. He doesn't want to deal with this case. But then eventually he starts to have nightmares about it, and then he remembers where Jigsaw's shop is. So he has a team of police force and Detective Carey go down there. He decides to change his mind, and then they go down to this house. The police force try to go up towards the stairs, and then they get set into a trap. I just got a bug on me. But anyhow, then they get set into a trap, and one of the police force gets his legs, because the Billy doll pops up, and one of the police officers gets his leg trapped, and it was a trap. The whole cage electrocutes him and kills him. So then everybody runs up. Detective Matthews finds Jigsaw, and they pretty much try to put him under arrest, but Jigsaw says that he has to stay there because for his game, and Eric has no clue what he's talking about. He actually goes up to him and says, is this close enough for you? And then he says, well, the answers will be in that room. And when he goes in there, he pulls off he takes off a cover, and he sees that there's a bunch of television monitors, and it's filming one of Jigsaw's games, which it was, and they see a bunch of people in there, and one of the people that's in there is his son Daniel, and Eric is shocked to see this, and he gets pissed at him, and he asks why Daniel's in the game, and he says that Daniel is in the game for a reason. And then it goes actually to the game. We see that one of the people in the game is still unconscious, and they're questioning why they're there. They don't really know why they're there. They all wake up and they have absolutely no idea where they are, and they have no clue why they're in this game. One of the people's trying to break out, and Eric pretty much asks him why he's there, and he says, well, I'm assuming your son's in the fetal position in the corner. And then Jigsaw tells him that if you sit here and talk to me, we can work this stuff out. I just want to talk to you. Eric doesn't have any interest in talking to Jigsaw, and so he doesn't. But Detective Allison Carey suggests that she goes and talks to him because this is a way that we can get to Jigsaw, and we can actually beat him at his own game. So he's going to go do that, and he's going to have a walkie-talkie so that way they can listen to what they're talking about. And then one of the people playing the game finally wakes up. Everyone wakes up, and we finally find out that it's Amanda. It was Amanda. She was in the first game, and we don't know why she's there again. She breaks in some bricks off the wall, and we find out that these people are trapped in a room. I'm just trying to see that has where is it? I'm just trying to find out. There's this gas that's in there that if they breathe in for too long, they will just bleed out and die. They will pretty much die from it. It's I can't find the name of it at the moment. I had it a couple of seconds ago, but pretty much it will cause all of if they breathe it in for too long, it will cause it's a nerve agent filling the house that will kill them within 2 hours. And they have they have 3 hours actually to get out, but it only takes but 2 hours if they have 2 hours to actually live. So obviously you can see that they're getting weaker, and then and also Jigsaw says that all of them have something in common. We don't, and that kind of becomes a thing throughout the movie, and they're all asking Amanda how she knows this game, and she says that she's played before, and it shows a flashback of when she was in the game before. Then Xavier finds a note that says not to use this key, and to lock that. There's a door that was in there, and they were told not to use that key to unlock that door. But he does it anyways, and when he opens it, one of the guys is looking through the hole, and he gets shot right in the eye when Xavier opens the door. And then what happens next is Eric Matthews goes to talk to Jigsaw, and we actually found out some backstories about Jigsaw. We found out that he has cancer eating away inside of him, and he said that he because he starts talking about he talks to Eric, saying that if you really you may love your son, but isn't it kind of funny how now you are willing to forgive all the sins that Matthew that your son Daniel has done when his life is at stake. And he even asked him what the last thing he said to Daniel was before when he saw him, and he says that why didn't you go back then? And he talks about how would you feel if you were given a certain date when you were gonna die, and it cuts back to a flashback when Jigsaw found out he was getting cancer. So Eric's like, well, yeah, but that's no reason. And then Eric talks about, how Jigsaw's killed people. He's a serial killer, but Jigsaw says, I don't give, I've never actually killed anyone. I give people, people die with the choices they make within my games. And Eric's like, well, that's pretty much like giving somebody a gun, and they get to decide whether they can pull the trigger or not. And then Jigsaw, Eric's like, so what? Just because you got cancer, you wanted to test people's lives? But we found out that Jigsaw actually tried to kill himself. Obviously, I don't need. His name's John Kramer, but you can either call him Jigsaw or John. I'm just gonna go Jigsaw. But we found out Jigsaw tried to pretty much commit suicide by driving his car off a cliff after he found out he had gotten cancer, but he had survived. So this kind of made him want to see how people would react if they were lives was put at stake, and see if they have that survival instincts. And that's why he draws the puzzle pieces into his victims that fail his game, because they fail to find that puzzle piece. And overall, I thought this was like a very good conversation that Eric and Jigsaw were having. Jigsaw actually made some good points here. I don't think that I think Jigsaw is a little nuts, but I don't think he's necessarily a bad guy. He's a person that wants to see if other people, that thinks that all life is precious pretty much, and he wants people to value their lives. And that's pretty much when he kind of gets home at Eric Matthews. He's still technically the villain because he pretty much puts these people in these situations to kill themselves. But he has actually never, you can technically say that he's actually never killed his victims. They've killed themselves because they failed at his game. So overall, you could look at it both ways. And Eric's just getting pissed about this at this point. And then it cuts back to the other people in the room. I'm gonna say all these names so I can go through them. So the kids that are in this game are Daniel Matthews, Xavier Chavez, Jonas Sinner, Addison Corday, Laura Hunter, Obi Tate, and Gus Colyard. Gus Colyard has already died. He was the guy that got his head shot through. And he was like a business guy. So each of them are trying to scroll through rooms and trying to find a way out. Xavier is trying to break through he finds a bat that has nails in it, a nail bat, I guess we could call it, and he tries to break out of the room, but we see that it's just a garage to get out of. And then everyone's looking around trying to find a way out, and meanwhile Jonas is trying to figure out what they all have in common, and he talks about how Jonas, Xavier, and Laura and Addison have all been in prison. Maybe that's what we have in common. So they kind of go around with that. And Addison finds a door to get to go down into the basement. So they all go down there. And we find a note from Obi. It was actually on a dead corpse. And we found out that Obi loves to play with fire. Apparently he's burned people before. And he's actually brought some of these, and we found out that he has actually taken some of these victims for Jigsaw to the game. He actually ended up kidnapping Laura, and he has to go inside a furnace, and there's antidotes. That was the whole key. There was a antidote because earlier in the movie, Jigsaw talks about how there's an antidote to the gas that they're breathing in that would save them. So Obi can go into this furnace and get 3 antidotes, and he could get one for himself and get one for the others. So pretty much Xavier and Laura are pissed at him because he's brought him in here, and Xavier forces him to go in there or he'll also kill him. So Obi goes in the furnace and he grabs all 3 antidotes, and when he grabs the 3rd one, the furnace door closes and it gets locked, and he has to and everyone's struggling to get it open, and the furnace starts to turn on, and pretty much Obi burns to death, and everyone tries to get him out. They break the window when he was getting out, and Obi actually gets himself out, and his arm gets trapped, and he burns to death. He dies, and the antidotes are left in there because only one of his arms came out. And I thought this scene looked really good. And I just love this scene too. Everyone trying to save Obi to get him out, and I thought it was really good. I thought it was great. And the way they wrote this scene was they actually wanted this to. I actually have it written down. I actually have the article for how they got this trap, and it says the original idea for the furnace trap came from the house having been a crematorium at some point, but this would have involved turning the house into a funeral parlor, so it was instead decided that the furnace would be part of the house's boiler room system. The furnace was visualized in the form of a computer model so that Bosom could better understand how shots could be filmed. Using the computer model as a guide, the furnace was constructed in 3 days using cement board and tin with removable sides and top, so Timothy Board, who played Obi, could be filmed crawling inside. The furnace produced real flames, and in the place of Bird, a stuntman using a fire retardant gel crawled into the fire. So overall, that's pretty much how that went down. And then everyone's upset that they can't get the antidotes, and then it cuts back to Eric, and he's just getting frustrated. He doesn't really want to listen to Jigsaw anymore. So Detective Allison suggests maybe to go destroy his work so that way he will that way he would tell him where Daniel is. So he goes to do just that. He starts tearing up paper. Well, he starts tearing up the place, and they're tearing up all of Jigsaw's work. And Jigsaw's like, "Yeah, destroy it. You still," and he says, "You still don't feel complete with yourself." And then he has Jigsaw go. Then he has Eric go into a room, and we find out actually that Eric pretty much has the thing that everybody has connected is that Eric has arrested these people before, except Daniel, and he's pretty much framed them for stuff that they didn't do. So I thought that was a really good scene right there. And Eric gets distraught about this, and realizes that Daniel is pretty much screwed once they find out who he is. And then what happens next? I don't think this will happen next, but then Daniel, Laura, and Amanda are also trying to find antidotes. Daniel's trying to get to what's going on with Amanda. He asks her why she is back in the game, and she says that she didn't treat her body very well, and we find out that she's been cut, and she's also been to prison a few times. She's been arrested, and she used to be a heroin addict, which caused her to be in the game to begin with. And then we find out that they found another door. So they opened this door, and originally we thought it was going to be a trap, but it wasn't. So then we find a note for Xavier, and pretty much Xavier we find out is a drug dealer. And now he has to go inside a hole that has a bunch of needles with drugs that would be drugs in there, and find the key to get into a door that's set on a timer. And if he doesn't open this door, the door will be locked forever. But instead, he throws Amanda in there, and Amanda gets injected with these needles, and pretty much she's starting to have hallucinations. She's actually having trouble finding the key. She eventually does find the key, but Daniel can't open the door in time, so the door gets locked forever. And I actually read that when they filmed this scene, they'd actually put a ton of fake needles in there, and they put foam down there so that way when Amanda would fall, it would actually be a nice soft landing. And overall, I thought this scene looked really good, and I thought Amanda's acting towards the scene was very well done as well. And a line that Jigsaw said in the tape was it's like finding a needle in the haystack, and that's pretty much exactly the case. So then Xavier realizes that everyone's holding him back, so he's gonna go survive by himself, and he goes to the safe, and he realizes that earlier in the movie, the Jigsaw said the combination of the safe. He said that you should use are in the back of your mind. So then Xavier figures out that Jigsaw has put numbers in the back of their heads. So of numbers that would be the combination. So then just give me a second. I'm trying to find the cast. So then Jonas walks in, and Jonas pretty much tries to talk some sense into Xavier, saying that we should all work together to try to get out of here, figure out what we all have in common. But then Xavier says that he's on his own, and he wants him to turn around so he can get the number off the back of his head. But he refuses, so Xavier attacks him. No, Jonas kicks his ass for a while, but pretty much because they're both getting so weak, and because of the gas filling up the room, Jonas starts coughing up blood, and Xavier kills him with the bat, and with the nails through it, and he just murders him with it, and then he gets his code, and then Addison, Daniel, and Amanda are walking through the house, and the other quotes was X marks the spot. Will help you find the answer, and they find a picture that's frame is all smashed with an X, and when Laura looks when Addison looks behind it, she finds out that Daniel's the son of Detective Eric, and pretty much since they arrested all of them, they get pissed about this because they assume that he's on his side and he's just like him. So Addison's just gonna go be on her own, and Amanda is gonna be on her own, and Laura actually dies doing this. She dies because of the gas. She starts coughing up foam and blood, and she dies. And Xavier's going around trying to get everybody's combinations and just killing everybody. So Amanda tries to help Daniel. She helps him escape, and Addison goes into a room, and she finds a note that I think was supposed to be hers. And there's a trap. There's an antidote in a glass box where you have to stick your hands through it, and she sticks her hands through it, and she gets her hands trapped. So she can't get out. So Xavier comes in and acts like he's going to help her, but instead all she gets is the number at the back of her head, and Xavier leaves, leaving Addison to die. I thought that was a great scene. And you actually don't see her die, you actually just hear her screaming. So then Amanda and Daniel try to block the door, preventing Xavier from getting in and killing him and getting their number. Then back at Jigsaw's laboratory, I'm just gonna call it. They had called a guy to get the signal from the video of where this house is. So they called like the big FBI guys and everything. And eventually, when Eric sees that Xavier is trying to kill Daniel, he goes and beats the crap out of Jigsaw. He destroys him, and he beats the absolute shit out of him. And he beats the shit out of him and forces him to take Eric to the house where it is. And he does, but he says he only wants to take Eric, so he does. And then they find out where the house is. They get the address and everything, and the police force goes to the house. And there's going to be more on that later. I'm gonna talk about this next thing first. And then Amanda and Daniel are blocking the door, and then they find that there's a door underneath in the room. There's a door that just opens up through the floor, and they don't have the key for it. But then they remember that Jonas had the key, so they get the key off Jonas' dead corpse. They open the key, and they run away from Xavier. They run through pretty much the boilers, and they go into the scene where the first Saw take place, in the bathroom. They actually go back through the, some of the scenes with Dr. Gordon, Adam, and Zepp, which I love that they did that. And then pretty much Daniel's all exhausted. he's starting to have a reaction to the gas, and Xavier comes in and he wants to get their numbers, but then Amanda says, but wait a minute, if you get our numbers and kill us, how are you going to find out your number if we don't tell it to you? And pretty much Xavier cuts the back of his the skin off his neck that has his number on it, and he puts it in his pocket. And I thought that looked like a great scene. They really added a touch to it. And then afterwards, Daniels cuts Xavier's throat. And as all this was and we don't see anything else that happens with Daniel and Amanda. As all this was happening, Jigsaw takes Eric to the house, and Eric gets the key, and he's going around the house as all this is happening, looking for Daniel. And then the police force are also in the house, and they are looking all around, and they find it suspicious that they haven't seen Eric yet. So then they go into this room, and they kick off like a cover, and they find a video feed of the actual house that they was in. They find the needles and everything. And then they find a VCR, and Officer Riggs, who was one of the officers working with him, presses pause, and it pauses the video that Detective Allison was watching. And we find out that the game wasn't live. Everything we had seen had taken place earlier in the day. So she realizes it wasn't live. Everybody had been dead for a while. They pretty much had been played by Jigsaw. And there was a timer that was counted down in there that they assumed was going to be for a bomb. And when the timer ends, Detective Allison, a safe opens up, and we see Daniel in the room breathing oxygen. And we actually found out that Daniel had been there all this time. Because one of the things that Jigsaw had to do was he revealed that he was playing a game with Eric, and all he had to do was sit there and talk to him. And if Eric had stayed there, he would have found Daniel. He would have been right there. So pretty much, Eric's emotions got the best of him. So then Eric goes into the room, and he sees someone that he thinks is Daniel, but it's actually not. It's Amanda wearing a pig mask, and she puts Eric, and she drugs him and pretty much injects him with I forget what it's called, but the stuff that they use to put you out in the hospital. And then when he wakes up, he's been chained to the a pipe, just like in the first Saw. And he finds a tape that reveals that Amanda actually had been working with Jigsaw all this time. And Amanda, and pretty much she's going to be the one that takes over Jigsaw's work when he dies. And pretty much as this happens, it shows everything and kind of, makes things make sense. And that was pretty much the entire scene. And then Amanda comes in and does the same scene that Jigsaw did in the first film and says game over, closes the door. And when Eric starts screaming a bunch of shit that he's gonna kill Amanda, and Jigsaw's all beaten, and he smiles, and then that was the end of the movie. And overall, I actually like this movie a lot. I think I like this just. I thought this movie was actually better than the first one. Just because it had a lot more storylines and stuff. You got to kind of get more in depth into the Jigsaw character, and I thought some of the characters played their parts really well in this film. The first one was still really good too. I thought this one was great. I think it's just barely greater than the first one. If I had to rate this one, I'm gonna give it an 8.5. I want to give it a 9, but what kind of hurts this movie is too much blood and gore. I think it got to the point where it was getting to be too much. It wasn't that it was gruesome, but I thought that they didn't really need to do as much blood and gore as they did. I felt like what the first one did better was it didn't have as much. It didn't really have it till the end. It was more of a story based. It was getting to the point where they had too much blood and gore. It kind of showed how stupid Eric was, because if he had just stayed there and talked to him, and I always thought this was stupid of Eric. This kind of makes Eric a stupid character. If he didn't just sit there and talk, all he had to do was pretty much sit there and talk to Jigsaw. He could have just been about anything. So that was kind of stupid. But like other than that, nothing really bad. But there was nothing like really bad in this movie. I even and Amanda. I didn't really think she was that good of a character. And the next film that I explained, she gets worse. But I thought her character was pretty bad in this movie. And you know, like, but I thought her acting was decent. But yeah, she just wasn't that good of a character itself in this movie. And she gets worse in the next movie. So yeah. I'll get to that though tomorrow. But anyhow, that's pretty much it. Pretty much though, we found out that this movie actually did very well in box office. I believe it was one of the most sold sequels. It actually says that on an opening weekend, it drew $31.7 million dollars, and it had 3,879 screens across 2,949 theaters. It says the 3-day Halloween opening weekend set a Lionsgate record. It became at the time the widest release for Lionsgate and one of the best opening weekends for a horror sequel. But unfortunately, it fell at 47%, making it $69.9 million. But the film was closed out of theaters on January 5th, 2006 after 70 days of release. So it was in theaters for, you know, a good 3 months. I mean, that's a pretty good amount of time for a movie to be in theaters. But overall, the box office numbers was, actually, I didn't say how much the budget was this movie. There was a $4 million budget for this movie. And the box office was $147.7. No, sorry, $147.7 million. I know that's a mouthful to say, but it did pretty well. It did really well in box numbers, so that's very good. I thought this movie though was very good. I would say it's definitely the best one in the series, at least out of the ones I've seen so far. I've seen all of them, but I haven't seen them in a while, so. But I thought this was better than the first one. Just barely though. 8.5 is still, I think, you know, pretty good. And yeah, it has a lot of great characters in it. I thought John Kramer was a fantastic character in this movie, and I thought it worked. And he actually had been nominated for Best Villain in 2006, but he didn't win. It was actually Darth Vader that ended up winning, but still, I mean, to be nominated is very impressive. So now, yeah, overall, I thought the movie was very well done. And everything had a reason for happening in this movie. You know, I like how it kind of how it connects everything, and I thought that was awesome. And going over now the cast of this movie, though, you had John Kramer played by Tobin Bell. Amanda Young was played by Shawnee Smith. Detective Eric Matthews was played by Donnie Wahlberg. Donnie Wahlberg is also in in another actually detective show that my grandmother watches. I don't know the name of it, but he's in that movie. Eric Kunz. So yeah, he knows how to play a detective well, I guess. Eric Knudsen played Daniel Matthews. Frankie G played Xavier Chevis. That's such a white name, Frankie G. Glenn Plummer played Jonas Sinner. Addison Corday was played by Emmanuel Volger. I don't know if that's how you say that. Laura Hunter was played by Beverly Mitchell. Obie Tate was played by Timothy Board. Detective Allison Carey was played by Diana Mayer. Lieutenant Daniel Rigg was played by Lyric Bent, and Michael Malks was played by Noam Jenkins, and the last but certainly not least, Gus Colliard was played by Tony Napo. I don't know if I pronounce all those names right, but that's pretty much it for this video. I just want to make sure though I get the shout out because I shout out this person because I said that I would. But before I do that, make sure you guys like, comment, and share this video for more so people will watch it. Make sure you guys subscribe to this channel for more content, and click on the bell so that way every time you upload a video, you guys will get the notification for it. Make sure you guys check out my CM Brothers and No on the Talkinator channel, which is this channel, and let's see. Just make sure, and I also said I would give this guy a shout out. I want to make sure that I do that before I forget. Make sure you guys check out Sam Medland. He asked me to shout him out, and I would made sure. I wanted to make sure that I remembered. I almost forgot. But yeah, make sure you check out Sam Medland. He does some videos. He's uploaded. He doesn't have a lot of videos. He has about 3 videos up there, and he pretty much uploaded. One of the videos you can go check out is his 3 magic tricks and tutorials video. I haven't seen it yet, but maybe I'll go watch it after this. But make sure you guys check out his YouTube channel. And yeah, that's pretty much it, guys. Thank you guys for watching this video. Talk to you later. I'll be back tomorrow for another Halloween movie review series.